Hello, and welcome to the Pert Ale, a solo basic fantasy RPG podcast. I'm your host, GM Wolfgang. This is episode 2 of the Morgansfort campaign, so let's dive right in. Last time I played, Aldrich had encountered, this is in episode 0 that I've yet to record, but Aldrich had encountered a priest, or, a high-level cleric in the Toothless Dragon Inn in Morgansfort that told him much of the troubles that are going around Morgansfort, or at least Aldrich believes that that's happening. Without really knowing the difference between the Church of Ta and the Church of Ta Reformed, he went to the local chapel in the fort, and the clerics there were not very receptive of his questions. They were very suspicious and sometimes hostile, and ultimately the main priest, Father Thelbane, told him that he needed to go back to the Iron Helm, the inn that Aldrich is staying in, and inquire with the proprietor or a concierge of sorts to try to figure out who this priest that's not of their order or, of their denomination, and where to locate him. And, so if you need to catch up, hit up episode 1. Like I said, I said in episode 1, and I'll repeat here, that I will do an episode 0 that does the backstory of all of the things that I'd rolled prior to starting this podcast, and then I'll also make a character creation video to show you the supplements and other odds and ends that I used in order to get where we are. I'll dial back the background music just a little bit. I don't want to be drowned out. I don't think it's too loud, but at the same time, until I figure out OBS, I really don't know. And I'm going to try to work on my ums. Apparently, in my first video, I ummed a lot, so just bear with me on that. But we find our hero leaving the Chapel of St. Quirrell, going back to the Iron Helm Inn, and trying to figure out who this priest is. So let's just jump right in, and we will just jump right in. Okay, so after a very interesting conversation with one of the newly ordained clerics and then the main cleric of the Chapel of St. Quirrell, Father Thelbane, our hero has been directed to go back to the Iron Helm and to talk to its proprietor, or possibly a concierge of that kind of analogy of that time. Not that I expect a concierge in such a faraway keep on the borderlands. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Let me go over my... Honestly... I was going to look at the module a little bit more, but we're in just kind of, the GM Emulator territory. For those that aren't familiar, I am using the basic fantasy RPG rules, and then I am also using the solo RPG GME Fantasy Edition by fellow YouTuber Wilhelmina's Cave. And I highly suggest that, if you're interested in a good, simple GM emulator, to look this up at DriveThruRPG. I am not sponsored in any way. It's just a really good tool. I've tried, Mythic before, and Mythic was good, but it's a little complicated. I'm sorry, not Wilhelmina, Willona. Willona's Cave. They also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Willona's Cave. And of course, their YouTube at Willona's Cave. I will link in the description. But I've used Mystic for a little bit, and it's a little complicated for just a simple RPG that Basic Fantasy is. So here is a much more basic GME for a basic RPG, and I think he's hit like platinum status on this this download at drive-through. So just you'll probably find it in the under $5. Actually, let me see if I can pull it up, and I will. Since it came out, it's been a hit, and right here, most popular under $5. This one right here, solo RPG GME fantasy. This is it. So I very highly recommend this. Here's a video that he's done, going through the whole thing. Feel free to check it out. I highly recommend this Game Master emulator. So, back to the game. I hope this isn't too loud. I may mute it, or not mute it, but I'm going to drop the volume just a little. Well, I'm still trying to figure out OBS. So you're just going to have to bear with me a little bit. There we go, I dropped it in YouTube. This is royalty free, if anybody at YouTube cares. Alright. So, Aldrich, our main character here, this is a either Printable Heroes or Paper Forge. I want to say that this is a Printable Heroes VTT token. I highly recommend them as well. None of these people that I bring up am I sponsored by. Like, I'm not trying to make money by pointing you in their direction. But, I mean, between Printable Heroes and Paper Forge, you're going to see both of those in here as well. As for affordable VTT tokens that fit really well in Owlbear Rodeo, which is my VTT, I can't recommend them anymore. Or not that I can't recommend them anymore, but I can't recommend them enough, I guess is what I'm getting at. So back to the game. So we're going to go back to the Iron Helm and see who we could speak to. So we've just spoken to Father Thelbane, and we're going to come back over and we're going to go back into the Iron Helm. And let's look at our tables. Let's start, I guess, with a yes or no question. Is the main proprietor of the Iron Helm in today? So that is going to be a d6 roll. And that's a 3. So that's how we started out before. It's a yes, but, and then we roll on the verb noun table. So this is interesting. Let's figure out what we have going on here. And before I showed you the verb noun table, I mistakenly said you roll a d20. You in fact roll a d100 and go from here. So yes, the proprietor is in, but what is happening? So let's start with the verb list. We need the d100. 59. Lead. Okay, lead what? So let's roll again. Lead 98. Lead warden. Okay, so maybe that means, like the lead guy, the head guy, is there, and that would be none other than the proprietor himself. So let's run with that. I like it. It sounds good. So the lead warden is there, the proprietor is there. Now, I may roll on a fantasy name generator if I need a. You know what? I think I need a fantasy name. So let's pause the video for just a moment, and I'll come back with you for a decent fantasy name. So far, all of the people behind the counter have been hobbits, or halflings rather. And so let me figure out this guy's race, and then his name, and possibly a class. But something that you will note is that because I am using OBS while playing live royalty-free music, again, YouTube, royalty-free music in the background, that when I pause the video, the music will skip a little bit. I'll try to kind of, pause the music while I'm doing this. But if I come back and the music's completely different, that's why. I've yet to really figure out OBS. This is only my second time using it. I'm really looking forward to possibly, recording background music in a separate program that is just the audio and then meshing it with the video. But it's nice to be able to play with the audio in the background. Gives a little inspiration, gives a little zest. So I'm going to pause the video long enough to figure out who I want this proprietor to be of the Iron Helm. I do have some information in the basic fantasy Morgansfort. Yeah, it looks like it's operated by Loren, the older brother of Lyanna, who is the Toothless Dragon's keep's wife. So I'm going to assume that they're at least human or elf. I didn't really roll anything on Lyanna. So I think it's fair to just assume that they're human, but who's behind the counter, that's another thing that I need to figure out real quick. So I'm just going to pause the video, and then I'll come back to you in just a moment. Okay, so the person behind the counter is again a halfling. This time it is a female halfling, a lady halfling. Her name is Theodora Halffoot, based on my generation here. So Aldrich approaches the counter, and the halfling, she's bright and just says, "Good morning, Master Aldrich. I hope you slept well." To which Aldrich says, "You're not the same halfling I saw not only last night, but even first thing this morning." And she says, "Yes, we trade often on jobs. Certainly nothing, there's many of us that are employed here at the Iron Helm. Master Loren is very kind to us. He employs many of us. Most of us are related in one way or another, either by marriage or distant cousinry, or brothers and sisters, some of us. Aldrich inquires how many of them are there. And I think a d20 is a good die to roll on here. So how many 1 through 20? Yeah, I think 1 through 20 is a fair bet. Even with all of the cleaning jobs and whatnot, it's not a very huge establishment. We're talking about 20 by 30 feet. So how many? Oh, 20. Oh, nice. I wish that were an attack roll. So it appears that 20 halflings in total work for Mr. Lauren, and she's very proud to say that many of them are her, immediate family, either through marriage or children or brothers or sisters or what have you. So Aldrich asks Theodora if, speaking of Mr. Lauren, is Mr. Lauren available? And she chimes right in, yes, he is. Just one moment. And she traipses off to the back for, a few minutes and comes back and says that, Mr. Lauren is a little busy at the moment, but he's happy to speak to you. So if you would just wait outside, or in the lobby rather, if you would just wait right here, Master Lauren would be very happy to speak with you. So there are benches lined on these two walls, next to the doors, and so Aldrich has a seat. About a quarter hour goes by, and then a large man with a bushy mustache appears. And Theodora points to Aldrich and says, this is the one that wanted to speak to you, Master. So let's check Master Lauren's mood. Go through my... Here we are. Alright, let's check his attitude. So I need a D12 roll. Alright, 11. He's respectful. Okay. Good morning, sir. Master Lauren says. Let me add that in there. Lauren. Good morning, Aldrich replies. And so they get to talking about the cleric that Aldrich met over at the Toothless Dragon. And Lauren says, I've heard of this guy. I've seen him a couple of times over at my sister's, at my brother-in-law's establishment. But I don't really know him. And so Aldrich asks, is he perhaps a guest here? I was referred over here by Father Thelbane at St. Quirrell's. Do you know who, is he a guest, rather? You've seen him a couple of times. Is he a guest here at the Iron Helm? And so let's go back to the Oracle table. And that is a D6. No. Alright, so flat out no. Just no, not but, not and, no. Do you know where he might be staying? Well, let's figure out how long he's been here. That's a good question. So, how long have you seen this priest that's not a part of your local clergy? Aldrich asks. I could roll a d12 on months. So let's try that. Let's roll how many months he's been here. He's been here 8 months. Okay, so surely, if that's the case, surely somebody knows who this guy is. But Lauren seems to be unaware of who he is. Now, his attitude was kind enough. It was pleasant, I believe, is what I rolled. No, respectful. But does he have some sort of different motivation? So we're gonna. Does he have some sort of motivation at all? So we're gonna re-roll. 9. Ambition. Okay. Well, he is a shopkeep. He's a businessman in the area. So yeah, of course I would see he would have ambition. So with that, we'll roll on the goals table. Revenge. Ooh, that's interesting. That is interesting. So he is respectful to Aldrich having come over, and to speak to him, but then he is ambitious, but he's seeking revenge. Interesting. Okay, let's write that down. I really need to work on my note taking for this. For this little undertaking I have here. There's my notebook here. So Lauren, respectful, at meeting, ambitious, seeking revenge. Now, let's roll a perception check for Aldrich and see if he is able to perceive any of this. 16, close but no dice. So I will say that Aldrich is a little suspicious about Lauren. He says that Priest has been here for 8 months. Let's see, Priest, 8 months. And Morgansfort, but he doesn't know much about him. So we've rolled on his motivation. Do we perceive his goals in mind, perhaps? No, not at all. So we've asked if he stays here, but perhaps we should ask, does he, or has he stayed? And I'm just going to kind of roll the volume back a little bit on this. Has he ever stayed here? So this is a yes or no, so let's check the Oracle. 5. And I believe that was no last time, so let me double check. Yeah, no, flat no. Is there any, feeling that Aldrich gets from Lauren? So let's make another perception check. 2, just flat out nothing. So Aldrich's just kind of in the dark here. So Lauren doesn't claim this cat in any fashion. Father Thelbane and the underling cleric were just flat out hostile and aggressive about this guy. So who is this guy? I guess the best thing that we could do now is to go check back at the Toothless Dragon and see if we can find this guy. Like, surely he's not some specter. And I do want to get the adventure rolling, so, spending a bunch of time trying to find a priest that's clearly not welcome in Morgansfort could be a rabbit hole. And so I don't want to get too wrapped up in that. If I can't find him in the next, handful of minutes, then I'm going to move forward under the assumption and I'll make the checks with Aldrich, but there's some clear issues here. Like, why are the Reformed, the Protestants angry about Aldrich bringing this stuff up? Why is Master Lauren stonewalling to a degree about, he's been here for 8 months based on our role. Like, does he live in town or doesn't he? That's a long time to be in a small keep. I mean, this is not a very large area, even at 10-foot square, 10 foot per square. We're not looking at a very large area. So, and maybe, we have an entire keep to explore, that maybe we come up with this guy, who he is, some information on him. But we're almost at the halfway mark, and we've not really figured that out. So I'm going to pause the video again, and then I'm going to come back, and we're going to try to figure out who this guy is, so that, either in this episode or in the next episode, we jump into whatever the adventure holds for us. So I'm going to pause here. You'll hear a break in the music. That's just how it's going to go for a little bit. And then I will be right back, and we will try to figure this out. Alright, so I've decided to switch up a little bit and use Mythic for this next question, the fate chart in Mythic. I think that there is a greater percent chance of running into this guy, this cleric in the Toothless Dragon than the Oracle in Solo RPG GME. So Solo RPG GME kind of has like a 16%, 16.6% chance of yes, no, or otherwise, whereas the fate chart gives a little bit more in depth. And I think that where it sits on the fate chart, if you're familiar with the fate chart, this seems like a job for the fate chart. So we're going to roll a D100 because I think it's a 50-50 shot of whether or not this cat is back in the Toothless Dragon. Maybe he eats there, maybe not. So let's roll on this this different chart and see what we come up with. 35. So that means that he is in there. And I think that that is good. Obviously, it's good. So let me get rid of... just going to kind of hide him. I know you can still see him on your screen. You're not one of the players here, but he's just kind of hidden. Our Lauren, our innkeep. So now we've gone back over here, and this cleric is there. And so, who is he? What information does he have? And can we trust him? I'm gonna put my phone on mute. So we walk into the Toothless Dragon. Are there other people there? And again, I think this is more of a 50-50 shot versus a 1 in 6. So let me go back to the Mythic chart and cast 46. Or I'm sorry, 49. Yeah, there are other people in there. How many? Can't imagine this place holding 100 people, so let's roll a d20. and 15 other people are in there. And we've already previously rolled on the fate chart, and we have discovered that this priest happens to be there, and it looks like he's consuming breakfast, and no judgment, but a breakfast beer. So Aldrich wants to approach this cleric. Let me see what kind of assets I have for a cleric. Might be a little in the scary zone there. Sorry. Let me PCs. Do I have a PC cleric? My son is a big fan of Basic Fantasy, or I'm sorry, Final Fantasy, and this is Cecil from Final Fantasy IV. He's a big fan. As you can tell, this is the same VTT I'm using for myself for Aldrich. Yep, there's Aldrich. Do I have anything in my other solo campaign? No. Alright, so NPCs. I don't seem to have a just good cleric, male cleric character. I'll have to fix that. Alright, so we'll just play pretend at the moment. I'll work on some of my assets for future episodes. So anyway, Aldrich walks in, and there are, about a dozen people inside the Toothless Dragon. You have sorry, let me get some of these characters correct here. So we have Garnoth, who is the Tavern Keep. Then we have Liana, his wife, and he has his two daughters, Irene and Louise, as servers. So we spot Garnoth at the, well, let's see. Let's roll a d4, and I'm sorry, a d4, and how many of them are there? No, I just need the d4. Okay. 3 of them are there. So I think it would be fair to assume Garnoth and his daughters are there serving, and Liana, I guess she takes night shift. So we have Garnoth as well as Irene and Louise bustling about, serving drinks, serving food. And does Aldrich immediately recognize the priest? So we're going to make another perception check. 8. Ah, so close. Look at that 20 right there. So close. All right, so he does not immediately recognize that the cleric is there. So he goes over and he hails Garnoth. And he and Garnoth, as I will explain in episode 0, he and Garnoth share kind of a bond. Garnoth was a soldier as well as Aldrich was, and so Aldrich has like access to free drinks and free food once the supply chain reopens, or at least that's the implication. So Aldrich approaches the bar and gives Garnoth the opportunity to kind of catch his breath. Although with 15 people, right? 15 people in, it's not super busy. So Garnoth instead, just hails Aldrich and just, "Hail, Master Aldrich!" And Aldrich approaches the bar and says, "Garnoth, again, brother, just Aldrich. You don't have to give me any titles or any high tone and fancy to dos. It's just Aldrich." "Apologies, Aldrich," says Garnoth. And so Garnoth asks him if he's thirsty, and Aldrich says, "Yes, I could go for a can't think of the word I'm looking for here, but like kind of a weak beer." And Garnoth pulls it from the tap and slides it over the bar counter, and then asks Aldrich if he'd like something to eat. And Aldrich says, something light, just something easy, maybe some eggs and some toast. Garnoth, snaps at his daughters, and one of them goes off to get Aldrich's order prepared. And, because it's such a simple dish, within moments, Aldrich is sitting drinking a light beer and eating some eggs and toast. And so he and Garnoth, exchange some information that was not really expressed in episode 0. And he starts talking about this priest that nobody else seems to want to talk about, that he has attempted to find since this morning. And by now, let's see, it was 7 o'clock this morning. Let me roll a random number here. Let's roll on a d24. Surely it's not been very long, but we could probably say 2 hours, but nope, it's not 8 o'clock at night, nor 9 o'clock, or 5 o'clock. This is not working out for me. Let's say 2 hours have passed, so now it's 9 o'clock. People are in there drinking, a beer and eating breakfast. And so Aldrich rather asks Garnoth if he knows this guy. So let's make the roll anyway, but him being the main tavern keep in the town, I have no doubt that Garnoth knows who this cat is. But let's see what the dice say. Otherwise, I'll just overwrite it. We might get something interesting. So roll a d6 and 5. So a no, which I disagree with. Like, how has this guy been in town for 8 months and was found at the Toothless Dragon when Aldrich was inquiring on, because as explained in episode 0, that Garnoth... Well, let's go back to the notes for episode 0. So what I have here is them exchanging pleasantries. Oh yeah, I forgot that initially that Aldrich was headed for Slateholm. That's why he was in that caravan, and that he was seeking adventure. And his last hurrah before he settled down, maybe open a business with my family. You seem to have inspired me a little on that end. Aldrich took the last drink of his mug. And then, that's when the bartender, he says, "I have coin," Aldrich says, and the bartender says, "Your money's no good here, brother, at least for the drinks." Okay, so that's when the goblins were brought up, is that, Garnoth is having issues getting stocks in because of the goblins. And then Aldrich decides that this is a good time to investigate the goblin problem. And that's when he ultimately, after the drunkard that spews some nonsense, and we'll go over that in episode 0, that he runs into this priest who brings up the goblin and kobold thing, the necromancer, and the orcs. So clearly Garnoth would know about this cat. So let's roll again. So yes and. Okay, I like that. Let's see what prompts we have. Yes and on the random event generator, and roll on the verb noun table. Alright, so on the random event generator, that is a d20. 4. Hidden trap activated, not applicable. 15. Misunderstanding causes conflict. Okay, perhaps. Let's roll one more time and see what we come up with. Misunderstanding causes conflict. Yeah, we're going to have to pause on that for just a second. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on this yes and answer from the Oracle. Oh, I didn't see some of these optional rules for the Oracle that a higher chance of resulting in yes or no, roll 2d6 and keep the highest. Okay, I'll keep that in mind for next time. Let's roll one more time on the random event generator just to be sure, because the last one, misunderstanding causes conflict. Like I said, I'm not going to dwell on the extras necessarily, but yeah, 11, magic phenomenon occurs. Okay, now, I think this is a little, this is not what I want from this, this encounter. Like, he said yes, if he knew this guy. And so, let's say yes, and he's also here. I believe that's what I had initially said, was that Aldrich had asked. Let me double check on that. Alright, so Garnoth, I did ask Garnoth, Aldrich did ask Garnoth if he knew this priest, and so we had a yes and the random event generator and the I didn't even get to the verb noun table. That just kind of doesn't make any sense for the thing at hand. So really the thing at hand is, yes, I know him and he's here. So we're going to run with that. Garnoth said, Aldrich says, do you know who this guy is that I talked to? And Garnoth says, not only do I know him, he's sitting right there eating, 3 eggs, a bit of roast mutton from last night, and drinking a strong draft of dark beer. And then Aldrich turns around and instantly recognizes this cleric that he has been speaking to. So Aldrich finishes his breakfast swiftly. It was just eggs and toast. And then he downs his beer and asks Garnoth to top it off and then to give him a second of whatever the priest is having. And as Garnoth had explained, it was a strong dark beer. And so Aldrich takes his beer and the new, the dark beer over to the cleric. And so let's roll on his attitude. Let me find that. Okay, so let's roll on his attitude. Maybe we'll check surprise. Let's see what the attitude has to say first, though. So D12 and cast 2. Aggressive. that seems a little, you know, when Aldrich comes up with a beer to this guy, all of a sudden he gets aggressive. That I don't agree with. That seems, they talked last night, although maybe he's a little hungover. Who knows how much the priest drank? We know that Aldrich was a little worse for wear this morning. Maybe I don't want to say aggressive, because I feel like apathetic or indifferent, neutral, those would be a little more of the feelings of somebody hungover after you see somebody after you've spoken to them about some important stuff. So let's re-roll on that. If I don't like the next roll, I'll just overwrite it and just pick a attitude out of here. I also have this is not just the GM emulator, I also have a reaction table here that I could roll 2d6 on versus a d12. So let's try again on that d12 roll. 9. Friendly. Okay. No, that makes total sense. Aldrich approaches the bench that the cleric is sitting at and kind of clears his throat and says, "Excuse me, Father." And the cleric looks up and is just, "Oh, Master Aldrich." Yeah, actually, if I go over my notes, I believe that, yeah, he called him Master Soldier initially, but then, yeah, Master Soldier, and then Aldrich replied, "Aldrich, please." And then the priest continued to call him Master Aldrich. So that makes total sense. Here is a friendly cleric whose name we don't know. I am going to get prepared to roll a name for him, or rather, generate a name for him. Let's see. Yeah, these are all fantasy character names. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Let's look up real names. I'm going to assume some sort of European lineage based on our current map. Obviously, this could be different somewhere else. I don't like how this... Okay. Real names, Europe. You know what? I like... I'm going to go with Roman. That seems a little antiquated. Let's say Celtic. Let's roll a d4 on Irish, Manx, Scottish, or Welsh on what his name will be. 4. So it looks like a Welsh name. Okay. I'm not good at reading Welsh, so I'm not going to go with Welsh, because that is... that with monks, whatever. Let's say Scottish. It's a little easier to read. All right, I've got some options, so let's just continue. So Aldrich approaches and says, "Good morning, Father," and the cleric replies, "Oh, good morning, Master Aldrich. I trust that you are still on your quest, even though I seriously suggested that you didn't." Refer to episode 0. Aldrich says, "Of course, Father. I have gold in my eyes. I have, starry eyes, and I'm not going to quit. You brought me information that could not possibly be ignored. Kobolds and goblins and orcs and a necromancer? No, I can't ignore that." And the cleric looks up and he says, "Is one of those mugs for me?" And Aldrich sets it down and pushes it towards the cleric. The cleric looks and sees that it's the exact same brew that he's drinking, and he smiles and says, "You're a good lad, son. I'm very glad to have met you." He drains the dregs of his current mug and then finishes off the last of his breakfast. Pushing the plate and cutlery and initial mug aside. Well, prior to that, he invites Aldrich to sit down. Then he pushes all of his flatware aside and prompts Aldrich with the opportunity to ask whatever questions he has. So Aldrich asks, first off, "What is your name, sir?" And the priest replies, "You can just call me Father Cormac." We get that written down. "Okay, Father Cormac," Aldrich replies, and in a friendly tone. "I've been trying to find you, but apparently you're not associated with the church next door to the Iron Helm." And Father Cormac replies, "No, I wouldn't be. They are of a different denomination than I am. Also, I've gone to Father Thelbane, and he refuses to believe that what I have to say is true. He must not trust me being a Bethite priest." So let's roll on Aldrich's interest in that conversation. You know what? I'm not going to. He's a fighter. He's not... If he was raised with any religion, it was so long ago. I'm not going to. I'm not going to roll on Aldrich's interest. I could see if Aldrich was a cleric, we would have a different conversation. So Aldrich then, lays out for the cleric all of the information from previously about how the Reformed Bethites were very stonewally on nothing's going on, and they were aggressive about that, and that if you had heard anything of this sort, that it was just lies. And Father Cormac, I'll roll his attitude real quick. Father Cormac is a little curious about the conversation that Aldrich and the clerics over in at the Chapel of St. Quirrell that they had, and so Aldrich lays it all out about how they were just very curt and a little hostile, at best indifferent on these issues the that Father Cormac had laid before Aldrich. And so Aldrich, I'm going to make a perception check for Aldrich. Aldrich asks Father Cormac, is all of this true? Is what you're telling me accurate? Father Cormac says yes, that it's all accurate, but that he would just have to go find out for himself if he didn't believe him. And all Father Cormac, let's roll on Father Cormac. I'm going to assume he is let's do a random roll here. All right, from 1 to 100, random number generator. How old is this guy? 61. Okay, so this is a high level cleric. Not even Father Felbane, who is a sixth level cleric. Like 61. If you've been a priest that long, you've been a cleric that long, I can't imagine that you're just sixth level. So Father Felbane is considerably younger than Father Cormac, and so he senses Aldrich's lack of intuition on this. There's big things at play. Father Cormac, after a couple of beers, really laid out for Aldrich a lot of issues that might or might not be happening in Morgansfort. And, so he just suggests to Aldrich that he go and find out for himself. Find out for myself, Father. Where should I look? What do you suggest? Where do you suggest that I look? And Father Cormac produces a map for Aldrich. Sorry, I think I need to refresh here. So let's see. think I need to refresh my VPN, so one moment. Alright, so the issue was that I had the fog fill option open on Owlbear Rodeo. But anyway, so Father Cormac produces this map and says, I think you should start here, my child, my son. That here at what is called the Old Island Fortress, you might begin to figure out the answers to your questions when it comes to the events that I laid out before you.
I am not a big fan of the song that's playing. I'm just gonna kind of skip that for a moment.
All right, starting out really good. Um, so Aldrich asks if he can have this map from Father Cormac, and Father Cormac says that the only reason that I have it on me is that I give it to you. You did not, you were not dissuaded from the prospects that I laid before you last night, and so very clearly you were going to need a heading. And so I found this map in my stores, and I brought it just so I could bring, just so I could run into you today. So please take this map and leave Morgansfort and head south, and you will come across a fortress that is on an island, and I'm sure that I'm very strong. I have very strong belief that what you're looking for lies within uh, this structure. And I may be wrong. I may not be. I don't know where the necromancer is holed up. I know he is looking for the place where necromancy was once a big thing in this area. I'm not entirely sure that that place even exists. But I want you to take this map, and I want you to go to this fortress that's listed here, that's pointed out here on this map. And I want you to do what you can to help save this keep. I'm not a very welcomed individual here. Apparently, my religion is not the flavor that the folks in Morgansfort want, but I'm always here. I've been here for 8 months, maybe longer, trying to win souls over to the original Church of Ta. And the one thing that I can do to help save the souls in Morgansfort right now is to give you this map and point you, give you a heading. And Father Cormac, takes a big long drink of his beer and says, Best of luck to you, son. I would like to perform a blessing on you. And Aldrich bows his head and receives a blessing from Father Cormac and prepares himself for a journey into an unknown territory. I don't think that Aldrich needs to ask around anymore. He trusts this priest. I know his perception checks have been a little light, but based on the attitudes of other people, Aldrich feels like he has little choice as to whether or not he's going to go check this fortress out. So with that, he departs from Father Cormac and takes the map, and he goes back to his room in the Iron Helm and he studies it, and he needs to figure out how he is going to travel from Morgansfort to this area, and then it looks like he has to cross some water in order to get to this fortress. So there's some planning that needs to happen, and it looks like it will probably take the rest of the day, which means that we're at a good stopping point. And so, friends, I hope this one was a little better than episode 1. I'm still trying to work it all out. I'll get there. I will get there, and like I said before, in the last episode, I hope nobody was bored and everybody stuck around. This is just raw play. I don't pre-manufacture a script. I don't do anything. I just sit down and I turn OBS on, and I've been trying to work out the audio a bit, but so hopefully the music was a little better this time. But at the end of the day, this is just one guy with a headset and some software and some music on YouTube, and some RPG assets. Just trying to play a game. Hopefully, this is interesting. Well, regardless, it's just going to be something that I record anyway, because I want to play this game. So I hope that I hope you all are entertained with it too. So I'm just going to sign off now. We're right at the same time frame as the last episode, so I feel like this is a good time to sign off. Episode 3 will be Aldrich making his way to the old island fortress and going from there, so we'll actually get into some dungeon play. So with that, GM Wolfgang signing off. Godspeed and good luck. Happy gaming.